Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing yet another movie review for you all, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a documentary from the United Kingdom, English and Arabic language with English subtitles, released in the year 2018, directed by Jonathan Hacker, and this film is called Path of Blood. So Path of Blood is about hundreds of hours of real footage that was confiscated by Saudi authorities after they conducted raids of terrorist network hideouts. So this footage ranged from these terrorists just having fun, mucking around with each other, and up into preparations for attacks and the aftermath of these attacks. So the Saudi authorities were desperate to wipe out all these terror cells, and the more they pushed against the terror cells and the more the terror cells pushed back, the more carnage and brutality ensued. So the innocent people were getting caught in the crossfire and the situation became desperate. So what happens at that point on? Something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Path of Blood. I have to warn you, and I have to stress this is an incredibly difficult watch. Now, the reason why it's so incredibly difficult is because you can't disconnect yourself saying that this is just a film. This is actually real life. And some of the stuff you see is absolutely ghastly. It will just burn inside your memory. It got to the stage where I almost had to turn it off because I just couldn't stand what I was actually seeing. And so if you're not into that kind of thing and you have trouble seeing real death on screen, then this is a film that I would say stay well away from. But what I really liked about this movie is the level of respect that the director had for death in this film. It didn't linger on the gore, it didn't linger on exploitation. It just had enough to actually hit home that message about how wasteful, war is, and how wasteful, violence is, and how destructive violence can be. And it also showed you the power of manipulation upon vulnerability. And then the vulnerability in this film was the youth within these terror networks, is that they were brainwashed into thinking what they were doing was right. But then when it come time to conduct these terrorist acts, I could see the level of hesitation in their eyes, that they were very uncomfortable with what they were doing. And so it shows you that the people behind the scenes were manipulating these people into believing what they were actually doing was right. But when they start to second guess what they're doing, you could see it in their body language. And so this is a film that it paints demonized individuals as human beings. And so this is something you can't shy away from. It would have been very easy for this director to just show the Saudi authorities fighting against the terrorist networks and showing you the aftermath, the death and all the destruction, which a lot of exploitation sort of real life documentaries do. And I don't believe that's respectful, and it's not really doing anything except glorifying violence and basically profiting off death, whereas this is a film that's just making that thought-provoking aspect as to the power of religion, the power of manipulation, and the negatives of religion, and that you can brainwash someone into believing what you want, and in order for them to do your dirty work. And so I thought there were victims on both sides here. That this youth in the terrorist network, you see them, they're doing running races, they're just mucking around, they're drinking, they're having fun, cracking jokes, and this is something that everyday people do. But you don't want to show that. You want to show these terrorists as nothing but evil. And so this is basically black and white. You paint one with a brush and you generalize everyone with that same brush, whereas this is a film that dares not to do that. And so that's the thought-provoking quality of this film, is that when they start to second guess, you start to have a strong sense of sympathy for the whole situation, and you get a sense of fear for those that are actually conducting things, for those that are the wolves in sheep clothing, basically, those that were preying upon that vulnerability and shaping that vulnerability for their own benefit. And at the end of the day, it's not religion. At the end of the day, it is fanaticism, and that is definitely something that made me think. And so all this time you see in the news, terrorists conducted these attacks. Many people have died. Yes, it's a horrible situation. Yes, it's a evil act, but those behind the evil acts aren't necessarily evil. They've been shaped that way. And so I thought that was absolutely thought-provoking. And then you've got the Saudi documentation of what they were doing and what lengths that they were willing to go in order to stop this. And so it's a game of cat and mouse. And I thought that game of cat and mouse was very thrilling, but it never gets into the realms of exploitation. And that's what a good documentary should do. It's enough to shock you. It's enough to make your eyes open, but it's not enough to linger on there to exploit the death and the carnage and the pain and the suffering. And so it's a film that's a very, very difficult watch. So I would stress that if you're not into the more extreme side of cinema, this is a movie I would stay well away from, because there's imagery in this film that will last with you for a very long time. and that there were moments of just the sheer look of death, the desperation, the suffering. This is a movie that is not a feel-good experience. This is a film that is not entertaining. Although it's very thrilling and it keeps you on the edge of your seat, I always felt as though that level of respect was restraining itself from actually being that entertainment, being that exploitation. And that's the best thing I can say about Path of Blood. It's only a one-time watch, but it's definitely a watch that I feel as though it's very important. If I have issues with this movie, it's not your run-of-the-mill film, so don't go in there expecting a traditional story. It does a very good job in its editing. I thought the editing was put together really, really well to make a coherent sort of direction, but it doesn't follow a specific story. It's not so much a case of really good direction, it's a case of really good editing. And it's put together very well. It's a voiceover that's explaining you what's happening, but it's just a collection of, these tapes that the Saudi government had confiscated, and now the director has access to them. And it's just very interesting to see what these tapes actually showed, and what they show is basically real life human beings. And so it's a catastrophic situation that's faced in this film, and if you think you can stomach it, then I would highly recommend you check out Path of Blood, but be very, very careful. I'm going to give this film 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.